Hey, welcome everybody. It's just about 10 o'clock. It's 9:59, but close enough on Tuesday morning, and it is time for our weekly webinar. I hope you all had a great holiday. It's been a few weeks since we talked, so our last webinar was on December 19th. So, and there's been a lot of activity since then. So our office was closed for the week between Christmas and New Year, so we all got a nice little break. And then we jumped right back into it after the first of the year, and I was preparing for this webinar, and I really do miss doing these when we have back-to-back holidays. I don't do these webinars after a market holiday because it's just too difficult to gather the information, certainly the market information that I need to make it meaningful for you. But when I was considering the topic for this week, I thought, I've been running through a checklist of things to consider in my mind, and I do this every year. And I do things for myself, set doctor's appointments, and make sure I set up things. And I was updating contribution limits, levels on my HSA, and we're going to talk about these things, but your HSA and 401ks and all those things. That's what happens when the time passes. But we click into the new year. But I thought to myself, geez, we do a year-end checklist for our clients. We should do a New Year checklist for our clients. So we're working on that. And I thought it would be a really nice time to share my checklist, and where it's not exhaustive. Of course, someone could come up with additional things we should add, but it's a good start and things you should be considering going into the new year. And I didn't say, but Happy New Year. I think I said Happy New Year, but I'll say it again, Happy New Year. But if you're just joining us on YouTube, be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button so that you make sure that you don't miss any of these videos. And there's a lot now. I think there's close to 200 videos on our YouTube channel. And some of them are kind of very funny when you look back at the original ones that we did. And when we were doing them on the Zoom platform, the box is really small at the top. So I'll probably be redoing some of those topics over the next year or so. But enjoy those videos, and I hope you learned something from it. And as long as they continue to be accessible without any kind of membership or anything like that, I encourage you to enjoy it, because at some point, I promise you, that will change. But let's get into it. So welcome again, and Happy New Year. And we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to go over our normal process, and we're going to go over some information from the Slott group. And since it's been since December 19th, I had a lot to go through and to figure out what to talk to you about. But just so much great information from that group. I can't say enough about them. And then we're going to talk about the markets. We're going to talk a bit about what happened in 2023, and we're going to talk about some of the things going on so far in 2024. And then we're going to have our Financial 15 segment, which is the financial planning topic of the day, and that is our New Year checklist. So let's go into it. Oh, I'm sorry. Some things to talk about. There is no webinar again next week because it is Martin Luther King Day on the 15th, and we will not have a webinar that following day. You did have access to the Changing World of Retirement classes that were on YouTube, and I did end those at the end of December, as I promised. However, there is an upcoming Changing World of Retirement Planning webinar class that is starting to fill up, and that starts on January 30th and February 6th. So there are 2 Tuesdays. We run 2 Tuesdays and 2 Thursdays. They're both 3-hour classes, so you can mix and match a little bit. But January 30th and February 6th, and February 1st and February 8th. So that's coming up soon, and you'll get an invitation to those classes as well. And it is a webinar, so if you've attended the Changing World of Retirement class in the past, and if you want to attend it again, you're welcome to. Or if you have someone close to you who you think would benefit, feel free to share it. Share that invitation, and they can register. They'll get workbooks sent out to them, and then they'll be able to attend the class. Okay, so let's go over our Slott updates first. I'm going to share my screen here with you, and this is from our friend Ian, and this one talks about new Roth provisions effective 2024, And I, of course, really like this one. I love Roth IRAs, so I like this report. Ian writes, when the bell dropped in Times Square last Sunday night, a bunch of new provisions from Secure 2.0 legislation kicked in. This article will focus on Roth-related changes that are effective in 2024. This is a big one that I get a lot of questions about, this 529 to Roth IRA rollovers. And there was a headline I read at some point over the past week or so that read something like, 529 or rollover provisions, a boon for wealthy investors. So I want you to think about headlines and then talk, we're going to talk about what this really means for people, this rollover of 529 funds to a Roth IRA. It's a nice provision, but I would say it's not necessarily a boon for wealthy investors. So under the new tax rules, if funds in a Section 529 plan are not used for education, the earnings are taxable and subject to a 10% penalty. This has scared many people away from funding 529 plans. As a way of relieving these fears, Congress included a provision in Secure 2.0 that allows for rollovers of unused 529 funds to Roth IRAs. While this is a worthy idea, beware of important restrictions on this new rollover rule. So you can't just roll over. If you have $100,000 left in a 529 plan, you can't just roll that over into a Roth. We're going to talk about these restrictions here, and Ian talks about them. The maximum amount that can be rolled over from a 529 account to a Roth IRA is $35,000. There is currently no indexing of this limit for inflation. So currently, that $35,000 is going to stay that way forever, even though the inflation, of course, may increase. The $35,000 limit is a lifetime maximum, and it appears to apply per beneficiary. So Ian writes it appears because we're still getting guidance from the IRS on these new rules. And it's been it's not even been a year yet. And at one of the Slott education events that we attended, I think it was the virtual one just a few months ago, they were talking about a proposed regulation. We're working on proposed regulations in certain areas of the of what's come out of the Secure 2.0, and sometimes they can last a long time. And this one that they were talking about in particular was over a decade. That proposed regulation. So it really kind of just became the regulation, this proposed regulation, and that's really what happens. Is that's the regulation you should follow, even though it's proposed. So anyway, the $35,000 limit is a lifetime maximum, and it appears to apply per beneficiary. The Roth IRA must be in the name of the 529 beneficiary, not the 529 owner, if the owner is different from the beneficiary. The 529 plan must have been open for more than 15 years. The IRS still hasn't said whether a new 15-year waiting period is required when a 529 is transferred to a new beneficiary. That's a big deal because that is not an uncommon tactic. So as an example, I'll share with you that my kids' 529 plans that may have recently changed, but for many, many years are still in my wife's name as an owner. Owner and beneficiary are the same. That allowed us flexibility, so we kept it that way. So now we've had those for more than 15 years, but if we suddenly changed the beneficiary to, say, my daughter, and those funds were unused, and we wanted to roll them into a Roth IRA, for her benefit, they would have to be for the benefit of the beneficiary, then we'd have to go back and look at the time where that beneficiary change started the clock, right? That 15-year clock would be the time that the beneficiary changed. That's the way I'm reading it, and that's the way most people are reading it, but still we haven't received guidance from the IRS specifically on it. But it appears to apply per beneficiary, and we need some guidance on that time, that clock change, that 15-year clock. Rollover amounts cannot include any 529 contributions and earnings on those contributions made in the preceding 5-year period. So these are complex rules, and I would argue and say that they really aren't a boon for. And it's helpful, and we appreciate it, but it's not going to be this cash cow for people. So rollovers are subject to the annual Roth IRA contribution limit. So, for example, no more than $7,000 can be rolled over from a 529 to a Roth IRA in 2024. The effect of this rule is that it would take several years to do a full $35,000 529 to Roth IRA rollover. Any 529 to Roth IRA rollover would count towards the IRA contribution limit in effect for that year. For example, a beneficiary doing a $5,000 rollover from a 529 plan in 2024 can only make an additional $2,000 IRA or Roth IRA contribution for 2024. Further, a 529 beneficiary doing the rollover must have compensation in the year of the rollover at least equal to the amount being rolled over. So again, a lot of requirements that can trip people up. Now listen, folks, this is something that people are going to say, well, and we're going to hear it eventually. I've got $100,000 in this 529 plan, and that's not uncommon. People do a lot of great planning for their children, and they either don't go to school, they get some kind of assistance, whatever it may be, and they end up with an amount that's in a 529 plan that is not being used. And sometimes it can be substantial. And they'll come in and they'll say, well, I heard you can roll this over to a Roth IRA. And maybe they try to do this rollover themselves, and then they get caught up in all these requirements that they may not be considering. So before you consider something like that, go talk to a qualified expert about it, is the moral of the story. No RMDs on Roth 401k funds. This is a huge round of applause. This should be. So we know that there are no RMDs for Roth IRAs, but this nagging requirement used to be that, well, hey, if you keep your Roth funds in a 401k, a big difference is you're required to take required minimum distributions out of those Roth 401k funds. And Congress finally saw how ridiculous this was and made changes. So before 2024, one big advantage that Roth IRAs had over Roth funds and 401ks and other company plans was that Roth IRA owners never had to take RMDs, but Roth 401k holders did. Secure 2.0 does away with this distinction by exempting Roth 401k funds from lifetime RMDs. Keep in mind that beneficiaries of inherited Roth 401ks are still subject to RMDs. Also, even with this change, rolling over Roth 401k funds to Roth IRA might still make sense because of more favorable Roth IRA distribution rules and a wider variety of investment options. All true. You've got to consider those rollovers. So if you're considering a rollover from your retirement plans, there's lots of things to consider, and that we've got a whole checklist for that too. So mandatory Roth 401k catch-ups, these are delayed. So the Secure Act, well, I'll let Ian continue to tell us. January 1st, 2024 was originally supposed to be the effective date of the Secure 2.0 rule, requiring that age 50 or older catch-up contributions by highly paid employees to 401ks and other plans be made on a Roth basis. See, Congress is trying to push into Roth. Why is that? Because they get their tax money now. But in the face of persistent complaints by record keepers and lobbying groups, the IRS delayed the effective date of this rule until 2026. So most people are down on lobbyists and lobbying groups. This is a good pressure point, in my opinion, because last year Congress said, okay, we want this done starting January 1st, 2024. It forced as Ian said, highly compensated people and folks over 50 when they're making catch-up contributions into the Roth. But the plans weren't ready for this. Most plans handle many employees, and there's a lot of moving parts to get these things working well. So that was a good change as well, in my opinion. All right, so here comes the Slott Report mailbag. And today we're going to talk about RMD calculations and trusts for disabled beneficiaries. Okay, so this again is from Ian. So here's the first question. Hoping you can help with this technical question. I'm over 73. My traditional IRA balance as of 12/31/2022 was $0. I made a $7,500 non-deductible traditional IRA contribution in 2023 and converted the full balance, $7,508.23, including $8.23 of interest, to a Roth IRA in 2023. I did not do an RMD prior to this conversion, but I did not have a traditional IRA balance at the end of my 2022, and my 2023 traditional IRA contribution was non-deductible. Should I have taken an RMD prior to the conversion? I'd love to be able to poll this and see what your thoughts are, but I'm just going to roll ahead and give you the answer. Because you did not have a balance in your traditional IRA as of 12/31/2022, you did not have an RMD for 2023. If you had an RMD for 2023, you would have needed to take the RMD before doing a Roth conversion. So your required minimum distribution is based on the balance of your closing year-end value, right? So in your IRA or IRAs or retirement plan or retirement plans, it's your RMD, traditional IRAs, traditional retirement plans. Your required minimum distributions are based on the 12/31 prior year value. If that prior year value is 0, then of course there is no required minimum distribution. Okay, next question. I am 79 and my regular IRA and Roth IRA started in 2001. Both name my revocable trust as sole beneficiary. My trust has a single beneficiary, my disabled daughter, age 49, who receives Social Security disability income. At my death, what are the distribution requirements currently? My daughter cannot manage her own affairs. The trustee would handle the trust. So here's the answer to that question. Hi, Jeff. Since she qualifies as disabled under the strict tax code definition, and Ian's making that assumption because she's receiving SSDI, your daughter is considered an eligible designated beneficiary under the Secure Act inherited IRA rules. Therefore, assuming the trust qualifies as a see-through trust, beneficiaries are named, RMDs can be paid out from both the traditional and Roth IRA to the trust over your daughter's single life expectancy. So single life expectancy is the table that's used. You can find that on our website at attleboroughwealth.com. Let's see. Let's just go to that. That's attleboroughwealth.com. And you can go to the slot corner up on the right-hand side and pull it down. The Education and Resources section, and pull it down, and you're going to see the slot corner. And you'll find all kinds of tax tables there, including the RMD distribution tables. And in this example, this person would use the single life expectancy table. So really great information as always. And I'm just going to share this with you again. And I'll just, that works. I keep this list here for me, and I keep it, on my desk. I keep it at different places where I work. There are 5 classes of EDBs, eligible designated beneficiary. And this was a big change with the Secure Act, right? So you have to be an eligible designated beneficiary to be able to use a stretch IRA. And that, of course, is surviving spouses, minor children of the account owner, disabled individual, the chronically ill, and beneficiaries not more than 10 years younger than the IRA owner. So they have preferential treatment, I'll say, under the IRA distribution and inherited. We're talking about inherited IRA rules. So I just occasionally like to share these just to remind you who we're talking about when we're talking about eligible designated beneficiaries. Okay. Now let's move on to investments. So I'm going to share my screen again because I'm just going to share this report, this chart that we get from Invesco. Now, this is not a recommendation to invest in Invesco or any of its companies. This is just a chart that they send me that I like because there's a lot of great information on this one page. And it's actually 2 pages, but I usually have up the 1 page. But let's just look at this together. Look at these returns of, I have a video about market indices. I'm gonna have that as a reference video in the comments. But market indices. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 16.18% for the year, and a lot of that came at the end of the year. S&P 500 26.26, NASDAQ up 44%. So this is all as of the end of December 2023, year ended December 2023. MSCI World Index, not including U.S., up 18.68%, positive 10.12% for the MSCI Emerging Markets. Europe, Asia, and the Far East, 18.95%. So you see these positive stock indices really across the globe for 2023. So sitting here in January of 2023, if someone would have said, well, I saw that coming, I'd have to challenge their integrity on that if they were really telling the truth. Because, looking back, if they would have said, I saw that coming a mile away, because we had so many headwinds going into 2023. And we do going into 2024, but this just goes to show you that you have to set yourself up to capture these gains when they come, because we just don't know when they're coming. I go through on a regular basis on these weekly webinars these analyst reports, and I like to show you, if you've been listening for a while, I like to show you that there are very smart people out there that are giving conflicting thoughts. BlackRock says one thing, Goldman Sachs says another thing, this company says a third thing, and they're all making these bets and assumptions on their portfolio growth in different areas in different ways. And sometimes they're very, very surprised that they may not work out. Sometimes we're surprised that things do work out. So the way that you position yourself to be set up to capture gains when they come is to let your plan drive your investment choices and your investment directions. Don't let your gut do it. I once had a person who worked for us for a short period of time, and he did some projections and some allocations I asked him to do for a client, and he came back to me with these projections and his pie chart. This is how he thinks that the how the allocation should be. And this person had been in the industry for some time. He was a certified financial planner. He had some good experience. And I said, tell me what drove your investment choices for this? How did you come up with your pie chart and investment suggestions here? And he said, well, it was really my gut. And this was a mentor type of situation. I was mentoring this person. So I said, you really don't want to be have your investment decisions driven by your gut. You want them based on some kind of facts that you can rely on, and you can always go back to. In my years in law enforcement, if things got bad, everybody says that you rely on your training and experience, right? So that's why we spend a lot of time doing certain things at the firing range and handling situations. So anyway, because that's what you fall back on. And in the same kind of situation, it's really nice when the markets are frothy and things are going well, but when things are difficult, you want to be able to rely on why you made these investment choices. Now, one of the things that could make a difference is missing certain gains, because if you're of the thought that, hey, I'm getting 5% in a money market account, or I'm getting 5% and the 5.5% in CDs or short-term treasuries or whatever, and that's good enough for me. Well, it may be good enough for you, but that information has to come from the plan, because if you need higher returns and you're only getting 5%, while that 5% feels safe and secure and it feels like it's good enough for you, it actually may hurt the plan in the future. Whereas if you have your investment allocations to things like these stock indices that are driven by your decisions are made driven by the plan, and you know that you need some growth in certain areas to reach your objectives, and that's identified in the plan, and they're put in certain places in your investment timeline, then that can give you the exposure you need for growth and help take care of your future needs. That's really what investing in the markets is about, is taking care of your future needs, because most of the time you can live off of the cash you have today, and certainly you can get good short-term returns. But I hope that all makes sense. So the way that you structure yourself so that you're not missing times, like surprising times like 2023, is to have a strong financial plan, to have your investment decisions be driven by the plan. And my thoughts. I believe in asset allocation, of course, strong asset allocation that's monitored. Make sure that you've got the best components you can find. And then I think you should have some level of principal protection in your portfolio, something that doesn't go below zero. And account segmentation. Account segmentation is having your investments placed on your life timeline exactly where they should be, so that you have growth where you need it and you have more security where you need it. And that's how you balance this potential growth that we see in a year like 2023 that was completely unexpected for most people, but still be able to have that comfort that you need. So I hope that makes sense. But even the bond market. So surprisingly, the bond markets recovered strongly at the end of the year. This one, the Barclays U.S. aggregate bond market is where most people hold their bond holdings, I would say. And that was, I crossed it off a little bit, but that was up, if you can see that, 5.53%. I colored in a little bit. But even, positive here, high yield bonds, 13.45. So, even the bond markets performed well. And that was really nice to see last year, because in 2022, we saw the stock market down and the bond market down. And that is shocking for people. And even smart investors, last year said to me, I don't want a bond fund because I got burned in bond funds in 2022. So, the way you offset these risks and concerns and these behavioral risks, it's really behavioral risks that affect our investment performance more than market risk. But how you offset these behavioral risks is have your plan drive your choices, and use those three pillars of investment strategies that I talked about: good asset allocation, principal protection, and account segmentation. All right. So I'm glad I shared that with you. Let's go back. So that was last year. Good, strong, surprising returns last year. And so far this year, so as of the first week of January, so the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down slightly, 0.5%. The S&P 500 was down slightly, 1.5%, down 1.5%. Everybody across the board really was down. NASDAQ was down 3%. So that makes sense. People just, you're coming off of a good year, kind of take the winnings off the table, pulling the froth off, whatever cliche you want to use, but you're taking those gains, and that can certainly make sense. Perhaps some rebalancing being done. That doesn't worry me as much, but there are definitely some headwinds going into this year. It's an election year. That's always an issue. Congress has a budget they have to pass by the end of the month, and Washington's a bit of a mess in my opinion, but we'll see what comes about. So what's happening this week is Thursday we have consumer price index. So we had a hot jobs report. So that means we had a better employment report than expected. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the consumer price index level is, and that's inflation. And then Friday we have producers price index. So we'll see how pricing pressures are developing at the wholesale level in this report. So they're the big ones this week. All right, I think that's good on the markets. So now let's jump into our financial 15. So our financial 15 this week, I'm going to make an adjustment here just so I can draw on my whiteboard effectively. But I explained to you how I came about this, but I'm just going to say it again because we do break up our videos. We have the full weekly webinar, and then we also have these financial 15 videos on YouTube as well and on our website. So if you're just joining us for the financial 15, I talked earlier in the weekly webinar and in the weekly webinar video, which is much longer. It usually runs about 45 minutes to an hour, but I go over some great IRA distribution information from the Slott group, which I'm fortunate to be a member of. And I go over some market analyses. And then we have this section here called the Financial 15. And what I was talking about earlier, and I'll just remind you folks, is I was doing my own New Year checklist and planning like I typically do in the beginning of the year. And I thought this would be a really good thing to share, I think. You can let me know. You can give me feedback with you folks. So, it's something I want to develop, as I mentioned, to send out to clients as well, because I want, there's some things that you just may not be considering, just like when we go through our financial planning process. And we don't, if someone says to us, oh, I want to spend $7,500 a month, we don't just take that and write it down and say, okay, that's our objective. We go through a process of uncovering your real expenses. And I have here we go again. So I have a video about that, and that is real expenses. And I'll list that here in the comments, or not in the comments, but in the description. But that's an example of digging in and really identifying true cost of things or issues you may not be considering. So going into 2024, I'd like you to take a look and see, okay, this would potentially be happening to me, to me, and I want to properly plan for it rather than waiting until November or December and say, oh, geez, this happened. Now I have to address it. So I think a year-end checklist and a New Year checklist is probably a good thing. So the first thing on my checklist, and again, this is not exhaustive. And if you are just joining us for this Financial 15, please hit the like, subscribe, and notification button so that you don't miss any videos going forward. So again, this is not, I'm certain there's things on here that you think that might be helpful on this checklist or should be on the checklist, but this is what I came up with and the things that I go through. So let's look at the first one. Do you reach a key age in 2024? So what are some of those key ages? Well, the first is age 50. Why is age 50 important? Age 50 is important because if you're contributing to IRAs or retirement plans, you have catch-up contributions after age 50. So you can see here, they can be significant. So this is a table I captured, but you can see in 401ks, 403bs, and 457 plans, I'm right here, your catch-up contribution is $7,500. So if you are not ready for that in the beginning of the year, it is with retirement plans, if you don't realize that you have the ability to contribute more, right? These are 2024 numbers. So this is 2024 retirement accounts and retirement plans, contribution levels. So this has gone up. And then if you go, if you suddenly realize, say in September, that, hey, I could have put in another $7,500, or I'm still using 2023 numbers on my deferral, that is not a 2023 number. I'm just giving you an example. Then you may not, because it's a salary deferral, you may not be able to just say, oh, you know what, I make up the difference in that. There may not be enough time, or you may not be able to reduce your paycheck that much, because a salary deferral is they take the money out of your salary and they put it into the retirement plan. You can't just write a check into that retirement plan. So that's a really important one, because you might want to take advantage of that. And simple plans have catch-up contributions. SEP IRAs have catch-up contributions. Of course, solo 401ks, traditional IRAs, and Roth IRAs have these catch-up contributions. There's some leniency with these two, because you have up till the filing deadline of the following year to make these contributions. But these above, anything above this line, this all has to be done by year end. So if you reached 50 or are reaching 50 this year, you might want to take a look at your contributions. And if you contribute to a 401k, you may want to just increase those contributions anyway. Age 55, so that's the first check. Age 55, well, that's increased contribution limits to HSAs. What's an HSA? A health savings account. So if you have a high deductible plan, I'm good. If you have a high deductible plan, you likely have access to an HSA. HSAs are excellent investment vehicles and savings vehicles, because you get a tax deduction by putting money into the HSA. And if it's used for qualified medical expenses, then you don't pay tax on that. Now, if you can, I would suggest that you wait until retirement to use that HSA. Many people will fund their HSA with whatever amount and then take it out immediately to help pay for those medical expenses. And that's not the best way to handle that, in my opinion. My opinion is that you let those funds grow in those HSAs. Find a good investment vehicle. My HSA, I can buy stocks, bonds, and whatever I want, mutual funds, ETFs in it, and not really whatever I want, but pretty much whatever I want. So my HSA is fully invested, and for most people, theirs should be. It shouldn't just sit in a savings account, in my opinion. It should be fully invested, and it should be for your retirement, not just not to be used as a pass through on the existing year. That should be a consideration anyway. But you have increased contribution limits to your HSA, and I can share that with you now. But that's you can see that's $1,000 more over age 55. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's $1,000 more over age 55. So HSA, so that has increased this year. For single filers, this is now your contribution level is $4,150. For a family, that's $8,300. Again, you get a tax deduction for that. That money grows, comes out tax-free as long as it's for qualified medical expenses. And if you're over age 55, you can contribute $1,000 more than that. So that's your HSA, and that is your age 55. 59 and a half is a big age. Why is 59 and a half a big age? 59 and a half is the age that you potentially have access to your 401k or other retirement plan, 403b. That's because the IRS says that at age 59 and a half, you can have full access to your 401k to roll over to an IRA or either one. So your 401k to roll over to an IRA. The reason you may want to consider that, and there are considerations to make, whether you roll over a 401k to an IRA, whether it's a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, whether it's a 401k, a Roth 401k or to a Roth IRA, there are certainly considerations to make. But you may want to do that. You may want to roll your 401k, your traditional 401k to a traditional IRA so that you can do Roth conversions. You might want more investment choices. You might want investment advice. There are different reasons for that. The IRS says you can do that. There's no tax on that. There's no penalty on that as long as it's done correctly. And it's actually really hard to do incorrectly, but some people still do it. But as long as it's done correctly, there's no tax on that. You just transfer your funds from a 401k to an IRA. And then you can do what you want with it. The IRS says you can. Your plan might be more restrictive. So you got to check with your plan to make sure that you can, in fact, roll a 401k into an IRA. But age 59 is the triggering age for that per the IRS. Again, your plan could be more restrictive. I don't know why they still are. It seems like huge liability to me, but age 59 is important. Age 65 is important. Why is age 65 important? Medicare and IRMA. Oh, I should have added a couple ages in here. 62. I should have added age. Well, this one's different, but certainly 70. That would go here. So 60. Let me go back to 65. So that's when you are eligible for Medicare benefits. So there are some requirements around Medicare election that you should be aware of. It's not an area of course we consider Medicare costs and IRMA costs, but I have an excellent resource for a Medicare benefit. If you need that resource, you can reach out to me at questions@attleboroughwealth.com. That's questions@attleboroughwealth.com. I'm happy to help you with that, introduce you to that individual. But Medicare is a big, important decision, and you should talk to a qualified expert about that. IRMA is income-related monthly adjustment amounts. I certainly have a video on that I'll include in the description, but that is a surcharge on your Medicare costs, and that is all determined by your modified adjusted gross income. So if your income is higher, and it doesn't feel real high, but as your income grows higher, you get more surcharges, and they can get quite expensive. So if you're eligible for Medicare, and you're receiving Medicare benefits and paying for them, you also have to learn about IRMA. Don't let it surprise you. A lot of people are surprised by this. So 65 is a big year. 70 is a big year. 70 is the maximum credit age for Social Security. So we'll add that to our checklist. Maximum credit age for Social Security. Now, deciding when you're going to elect your Social Security benefits is a big decision. It starts at 62. It goes all the way to 70. But there are many considerations to make in that decision, and we're fortunate that we have one of the top experts, I believe, in the country, Heather Schreiber, who works with our team, who helps us analyze options, Social Security options for our clients. So that is a big decision. You've not just look at the amount that you can get out of the Social Security Administration, but you also have to look at your cash flow needs and your tax situation, all those different things. But certainly ages 62 to 70 is a Social Security. And then we have 73 is now the RMD age. Age 73 is now the required minimum distribution age. Let me say that again. The required minimum distribution age for your IRAs and 401ks, traditional IRAs and traditional 401ks, is now 73. It is not 70 and a half. I know you've heard the age 70 and a half. That changed a couple years ago to 72, but it is not 72 anymore. It is now 73. So 73 is the age that you must begin taking your required minimum distributions. It is required minimum distributions has become, in my opinion, one of the most confusing parts of the tax code. And it also holds the most expensive penalty, which is 25%. And it can be reduced to 10%, but 25% of what you should have taken out of your IRA account, that is, or 10% of what you should have taken out of your IRA account. So pay attention to age 73, required minimum distributions. All right. Also, we talked about contributions to retirement accounts and retirement plans. These have all gone up this year. So IRAs and Roth IRAs are now $7,000. With the $1,000 plus the $1,000 catch up if you're over 50. So we talked about that, but this is just a look at some of the increases for 2024. But you want to be aware of those increases so you can plan accordingly. And we talked about HSAs. Now we look at, and I did that. I don't think I was cutting anything off. Then we look at what your anticipations are for the year. Do you anticipate changes to your job or jobs? Right? Maybe you're married and you and your spouse are both going to retire or just change jobs. So retirement it could be different. It could be that you're completely stopping working. Changes to jobs could be you're getting a larger position. You're going to be consulting. You're going to be working part-time. There could be a lot. So is that something that's part of your plan to this year? Of course, you may end up in that situation. It may come suddenly in July and you didn't anticipate it for this year, but it could be something you're thinking about. So do you anticipate changes to your job or jobs? Do you anticipate retirement, whatever that retirement looks like to you, whether it's working less, not working at all, whatever? Do you anticipate doing that this year? If you do, there are certainly some planning steps you should be taking now to prepare for that. How about sale of property or relocation? Do you anticipate selling your home, investment properties, or relocating? This is something that you should be considering now in the beginning of the year and start planning for it, even if it's not going to happen until the end of the year or the middle of the year. Start having those discussions now. How about major expenses? Weddings, mitzvahs, other events, education. That's on top of my mind right now. I've got 2 kids in college, or one in, one going, but all these major expenses, you should be fleshing these out at this point in time, writing down, okay, I could potentially have this. I may need a new car. Geez, we might need a new roof, new heating system, whatever it might be. I was talking to somebody yesterday and they said, my heat went out. There were 3 things. His power, something happened with his power, his heat, and something else all at once. And that's a lot to deal with. But major expenses for the year. Do you have anything planned? Major expenses. How are you going to handle that? Charitable contributions. So QCDs are now, that's qualified charitable distributions. I, of course, have a video on qualified charitable distributions. I'm going to write that down. But QCDs under the Secure 2.0 Act are now adjusted for inflation. If you're going to be making charitable contributions, and certainly if you're going to be using the QCD provision that allows you to take money out of your IRA, send it directly to a charity without passing go, so to speak. It goes right to the charity, so you don't have to pay tax on that. But there are requirements around that. So that is something you want to plan for. And then you want to schedule Like I told you, I was scheduling my doctor's appointments and things like that. You want to schedule your financial planning meeting. You should be reviewing your financial plan every single year. You all know I say this. Sometimes, we have clients January 1 knocking on our door saying, when is my financial planning meeting? And sometimes we have clients at the end of the year, we're saying, please send us the documents back that we sent you. But you should have that financial planning meeting scheduled because the year gets busy, whether good busy or not so good busy, and you want to make sure that those things are on your calendar. Account reviews, whether you review them yourself or you're working with a professional, review those accounts. I told you, I am not, I don't know if you've heard this from me before, but I am not of the mindset that you should never look at your statements. Financial advisors say that, and I will just say I think it's irresponsible, especially during bad markets. You want to look at your statements and you want to have account reviews. And if you're up, you should listen. Nobody expects you individuals to have the same knowledge of investments and the fundamentals that we do, right? But you should have a general idea of, or ask questions. Okay, I see that this account is down X percent. Why is it down X percent? You ask that question. Or, hey, this is up quite a bit, or it's up at all. Why is that the case? No one should be afraid of answering the question why. So account reviews are important. Tax filing. Don't wait till the last minute. Wouldn't it be nice to reach out to your accountant, your tax preparer today and say, hey, I just want to make sure I'm on your calendar for our tax filing because I know April comes quickly and I know you get very busy. So set up that tax filing appointment now and start getting your information together. And then estimated taxes. Don't let this sneak up on you. If you're doing Roth conversions or any kind of tax planning, or if you're still working and you need to make estimated payments, you've got some deadline. You got one coming up next week, and then you've got some deadlines throughout the rest of the year. So schedule those estimated taxes. All right. And I think that covers our checklist. So that's a good start. Again, I added 2 things while we were talking, so I'm sure there's other things that you can add on. But I want to get your mind working, and let's start with the planning process and checklists and getting all that information, and that positioning is the start of the planning process. So I hope that was helpful. So that's it for our webinar today. We will not have a webinar next week. We'll be back the following week. I'll be on the heels of returning from a trip out to Arizona to see our Power Zero friends, and I'm fortunate to be asked to speak at the Power Zero conference this year, so I'm excited about that. But so I'll be coming back, but we will have a webinar as long as there's no issues as far as flights on the 23rd. And I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great week. If you reach out to us, if you need to reach out to us to schedule an appointment with me or have questions, you can reach us at questions@attleborowealth.com. That's questions@attleborowealth.com, and you can find a lot of great information, I think, at attleborowealth.com. Folks, we'll see you next week, and have a great week. Take care.